Hi, I'm Steve Mera, and in this presentation, which I did a number of years ago, I was covering ancient sites all around the world. Now, I've travelled obviously all around the UK and covered a lot of the ancient sites here, but I also travelled around the world in other countries to discover some of the strange anomalies that are truly real when you experience these places. This is the first part of a presentation, and I'm going to be covering a lot of the ancient sites all around the world, and also some of the many things that have been discovered at these locations. I hope you enjoy it, and thank you for watching. And if you do like it, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you. Today's lecture is, it's come about through watching television shows, to be honest with you. Things like Ancient Aliens and all those mysterious National Geographic programs that we see on megaliths and things. And to me, you know, I'm not one to always watch television and say, yep, that's it, that's the truth, that's what they're putting out. I like to find out for myself. Visiting some of these locations revealed two things to me. The first thing is that television programs tend to show you the same thing. There's a regurgitation of, if it's not Egypt, it's Peru, and it's the walls and this and the other. However, there's a considerable, what we're actually seeing on television is literally like 2%. You know, the other 98% are just as, if not more magnificent than some of the things we've seen on television. But I wanted to find out for myself, did he really? Is there a spin on television stuff? You know, are they really as mysterious as they make out? The second thing was, after conducting a lot of research around the world in these ancient sites, one thing comes to mind, and that isn't what the remnants are. It isn't the huge stones and the megalith structures and how they built them. It's the machinery. It's the machinery, it's the mystery. Where's the machinery that made these things and cut these things and placed these things? That, to me, is probably the most significant mystery of all. And as we'll see as we go through the presentation. Okay, so this is what we're told. We developed from monkeys to man, apes, should we say, sorry, apes to man. But what I'm going to suggest in this lecture is that somehow, here, round about here, there's something. It was seen that there's a civilization being just cut out of history. It's like we've took a step, just stepped over it and said, oh, just ignore that. We don't want to go there. And it doesn't just involve this country, it involves the whole world. A civilization which is just, let's not go there, let's not get into that. And that is what I've found throughout these research have been carried out. So this is the idea that we're generally told 200,000 years ago. We were living in caves. I think we can pretty much work out that's not exactly how we lived. We're finding more and more things out which would suggest that we were a lot more capable as humans many, many years ago. Even 10,000 years ago, that we were just farmers. You know, we just had a few stock, lived in villages, and just farmed the fields. A lot more than that. There were societies. There was art, there was music, there was mathematics, there was buildings, constructions that you could never dream of. There's a lot more to it than just living on like a farmer. Today, modern society, yep, we can say, okay, we can do more almost anything really these days, but can we actually create some of the things that are literally around the world that we still see? And of course, the professionals that work with stone and construction will say, no, it can't be done with what we have now, let alone thousands of years ago. I'm going to be looking at areas in Peru. Peru is probably one of the most mysterious locations on the planet. You know, it's like if you want to take one country and just throw as many mysteries into it, Peru would be the place. Bolivia is also very well known for its strange mysteries and stonework. And of course, we can't get away from Egypt, of course, can we? But I'm not going to cover the standard things that you often talk about in Egypt, about inside the pyramids and, you know, the shafts and the star alignments and how, You know, if they align to the stars, it throws them back thousands of years, which would mean one of two things: that the Egyptians are a lot older than what they're saying, or they were commemorating some ancient time in the sky by making these shafts in the pyramids that pointed to certain stars during precession of the Earth thousands of years earlier. Sacsayhuaman, I always call it sexy woman, because it's kind of the way you say it, Sacsayhuaman. It's an interesting place. What they've found out recently about this location, is anybody been? Wonderful. What they're actually saying now, through new research and samples taken from these stones, is that there is a product within the stone which would suggest that it's a little bit more like cement than it is a rock, which is fascinating, because have these been crafted? Are these just not stones? Because what they're saying is these chemicals in it, what would suggest it's like a cement, not between them, but actually constructed. There is no mortar between these. What they did say is that the scientists say this is how they built them, with these tools. Now, when you look at rocks and you study rocks, you'll find that there are different levels of hardness to rocks, and there's kind of a scale, 1 to 10 for an example. Some of the tools that have been used around the world tend to be other stones and things like bronze and copper. The problem is that bronze and copper on a hardness scale are around about maybe 4 or 5. What they're actually saying is when they're cutting rock such as rose quartz, which is like a level 8, the first thing that's going to be damaged is the tool. You know, you can't use a tool like that to cut rock though that hard. It's impossible. And yet this is what we're told by archaeologists, mainstream archaeologists all around the world. When we talk about the Incas, for those that visit Peru, it's a very tight place, Cusco. But it wasn't the original place of the Incas. They actually moved. The original place is round about Lake Titicaca, and they're living on a number of islands as well before they relocated due to drought. One of those islands is the island of the sun. And I just want you to pay attention here this is Inca construction. We know it's Inca, absolutely. That's Inca construction, okay? And I just want you to remember and look at this. It looks something like you probably find in Yorkshire, isn't it? Just not shaped stones, just anything thrown together and mortared up. They used mud to mortar these between them. And this is Inca construction. Here's a close-up, again, Inca stone buildings. And you can see these stones are just pretty much anything, any size, any shape. And they've just thrown them together to make these constructions. Here's another one, as you can see. Inca stone buildings. And you can see actually the mud that they used, because on some occasions, not only did they put the mud between the stones, but they also rubbed it over the stones as well, just to make it go dry and hard. But nothing spectacular, is it? From what we see on television and what they claim is Inca construction. These are known as adobe mud buildings, which is stone and mud. Now when we look at things like this is Tiahuanaco. Look at these stones here, and look at this. They claim both from the same time and constructed by Inca. Now doesn't that kind of a bit of a giveaway here that obviously these guys around about the same time making this surely can't have been the same guys, which would suggest that the Incas are right when we asked them about these places, and they said, oh, they were already there. You know, we just kind of took over the location. We were kind of the caretakers. Those have been there as far as our ancestors can remember. But archaeologists will just completely ignore that and say, oh, it was Inca construction. Everything's Inca. So who made these? And this is the point. Who made these? Look at the size of these stones here. Incredible, incredible work. And of course, we know the gateway to the sun, which again was cut out. It's unfortunately due to land movement. it is a crackiness now, but was cut out of a single piece of stone. And of course, there's mathematics involved in this, tremendous pieces of artwork. It's incredible that you can get these flat surfaces, and these edges are so sharp that people have literally almost cut their fingers on them. And evenly spaced, and I mean absolutely spot on, evenly spaced drill marks, drill holes. There's drill holes in granite stone. What did they drill them with? The mainstream archaeologists said that they used bones, and what they did is they turned the bones so hard and fast that it managed to cut these precise holes, exactly the same size, into the stone. What a load of crock. I mean, come on, I mean, using bones? This is granite stone. The H blocks are probably the most significant finds. Amazing construction, which were Pumapunku. And they're cut out in a certain way, like they're just kind of a jigsaw that slide in. You can't assemble them any other way but sliding them in. It's like I don't know if anybody remembers Meccano sets, but it was like fitting all these pieces together. They were built in such a way that, you know, a force 5 on a Richter scale earthquake wouldn't have no problem with this. Shake it off, not a problem. You know, things like this. This is why things have lasted a tremendous length of time. Obviously, though, from when you do the research and look around the world, it would seem around about 9,500 BC, something happened on this planet. Something significant of a massive magnitude, which would affect some of these huge locations, because the only way to crack stones of this size and the only way to move them would be of something of a huge catastrophe of some sort, which is interesting because it falls in line with you know, lots of talk about floods and death coming from the skies and all sorts of wonderful stories from all around the world. It would seem to have been a global event, whatever it was. But it is these guys I'm very curious about. Now, visiting Cusco, and if you go down to Ica, there's a museum there, and they have some of these skulls there. And when you actually look at these, they're literally maybe about so big, about this long. They're huge. And it's very difficult to judge a sizing on picture. But let's just say the brain mass that was in these skulls was huge compared to humans. The brain mass. Otherwise, what else was in the head? You know, it was just a big gap. Well, you know, that wouldn't be the case. Obviously, the brains were very large, and the skulls are elongated. But it's not just a matter of elongation, because we know about boarding. We know about that there are certain people around the world that still do it today, that board the children, and they put a board on their heads and they shape the skull in a certain fashion, and they believe it's, you know, it's godly, it's spiritual, it's nearer to their gods, which again is interesting where that concept comes from. But it is these guys which are scattered not just in Peru, all around the world, and they're kept quiet. They don't talk about much about these. Just look at the size of these. These are real skulls. Now, the Ica Museum said, when we asked the question, you've conducted research on these, because we know that you've conducted research on them. What are the results? We haven't got any results. And this has been going on for years, I think 15 years now. We haven't got any results. But we do know that there were tests carried out. We're not parting with the information. This is what apparently the Inca looked like. Mainstream archaeologists say this is their skulls. There's a big difference between these folk, which look a lot like you and me, and these guys. You certainly notice one of these guys walking down the street. And again, mainstream archaeology is not somehow telling us everything. And of course, when Lake Titicaca dried out, the Inca were forced to move. So they headed more inland and between the valleys, and that became Cusco as we know it. This is, you can see, the valley of Cusco. And when they got there, they came across these. The Inca actually came across these. Very similar to Inca construction. And what these was another tribe actually living there called the Wari. This is the Wari construction. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference between that and proper Inca. Pretty much exactly the same. But the Wari kind of integrated with the Inca. They didn't, get them moved off that valley. They kind of integrated with the societies. So there were two societies pretty much doing the same type of stonework. But then we see things like this. Precision, huge stones, precisionally cut. We've seen all these before. But what's on top of it is Inca construction. So it's like they've come across this and built on top of it. But if they built this, then why didn't they just continue building it the same way as the original foundation was? Mainstream archaeologists say it's all Inca. Doesn't make any sense. If we take this place, the Koricancha, it's really pretty much the centre of Cusco. It's believed to be the heart of Cusco. And this construction is amazing. But what is also very much, it's just incredible. There's just no way that is an Inca construction. When you get inside and start looking, you can see that they've used these keys, which keyed the stones together. Very clever method. But it's not just Peru. Peruvian people did that. They've done it all around the world around about the same time. As you can see, these are all from different countries around the world. Vietnam, Peru, Egypt, South America. They may be slightly different shapes, but they're all the same idea about locking stones together to make sure that they wouldn't move during an earthquake or shift. They'd keep same construction. Same idea, all around the world, around about the same time. Of course, mainstream archaeologists and historians will say, well, people didn't know the world was round then. We wasn't, traversing oceans like the Pacific. That's again, more rubbish, absolute rubbish, because we know that the Egyptians were trading with the South Americans because they had cocaine in the systems. And cocaine came from South America. So trading must have been happening. So we give a lot of credence to Columbus, don't we, really? When things like that were happening thousands of years prior. Most of the most significant things are these coring out of rock, of granite stone. In fact, you can actually see the core, the oscillation, the core, as it's bored out. How on earth did they do it? With what machinery did they do it? Is unknown. It is as if whatever they had to create these things don't exist. Again, you can see as it's bored through, you can see as it's turning, it's leave these kind of lathe marks in it. In the centre of the Koricancha is this. People thought it was a well. Nobody really knows what it is. It's actually, they put these plants up around it now because they don't want people to go over and take photographs of inside. Because when you take photographs of the inside, it looks like the king's chamber. It looks like the sarcophagus in the king's chamber of the Egyptian pyramid. It is perfectly cut out of a single piece of rock. But what's more interesting is what a lot of people don't realise, is that from this location, underground, underneath that building, there is, in fact, tunnels which stretch all the way through every single ancient site throughout Peru, all the way up to Sacsayhuaman. They've cored out underneath the ground, out of, just literally cored out the rock, the bedrock of this tunnel. And it goes all the way through all these ancient sites, all the way through to Sacsayhuaman. It's an incredible feat. Again, you don't see that on television. It's also, according to electromagnetic and geomagnetic test surveys, it would seem the location of this Koricancha area is exceptionally high in geomagnetics. That area there seems to be the focal point. Is that why they built it, or is somehow what they built is generating that? We couldn't find any explanation, no running water underground. We couldn't find any explanation for the geomagnetics, the high geomagnetics. As soon as you walk away from this location, it starts to drop, so it seems to be that's the focal point. And as you can see, these older buildings, they've been built upon. So what they've done is they've utilised what was there and just built a building using these. Rather than moving them, they just built on top of them. So basically you've got 2-3 areas of different types of building all in one lot. And that's spread throughout the whole area of Cusco. You can see how, I mean, nowadays, you know, we tend to just take a stone to the corner and then do another one. No, not good enough. They had to curve their stones round perfectly. Incredible stonework. Underneath that location, just here, down here, were these 3 skulls. Again, elongated skulls, very elongated skulls. Brain mass would have been huge. Of course, you don't hear about that. Those are rushed off to Inca Museum, by the way. This particular wall, if anyone's been to Cusco, that's a very well-known area, is the world's most precise wall ever built. To the microscopic millimetre, less than a millimetre. You know, the construction on that is incredible. Even with the laser technology, I don't know if you've seen guys out in the streets, these workmen, and they have these yellow tripods with these little gadgets on, and they use a laser to get laser correction lines. It's the only way really they could have got something like that so straight. Because it's impossible, it can't be done with the naked eye. It has to have some form of equipment to be able to judge to the microscopic millimetres. And of course we have a perfect example of when the Spanish came to Cusco and they tried repairing this wall. And this is the Spaniards' attempt. You can see the mortar. And this is the original with no mortar. I mean, why did these guys use stones like this? Why did they make more work for themselves? Why did they not just do blocks and just, hey, it doesn't matter about the size. It's just like, we've got to make this as damn difficult as possible for ourselves. I don't know why, but you just wouldn't really do that. But they did, and they spent a lot of time making sure it was, every single stone was cut in a certain way to fashion between the resting pieces. Just like so. It's absolutely amazing. And not only are they not flat, they actually are etched out purposely. And they have these unusual nodules on, which nobody really knows what these nodules represent. But there are little messages between the stones. And these nodules, messages which are in the shape of animals. There's this particular one, which is this, I think this one here is this head of the cat. And of course, we've darkened this area to show that the exact image. And again, in this location, some type of snake or serpent. Now, I have to credit 2 guys, really, 2 of the leading worlds, as far as I'm concerned, the leading guys in this particular subject, which is probably Brian Forrester and David Childress. And their work, they found these things. Their work is absolutely incredible, you know, and you have to kind of keep up to date with the ongoing studies, because more and more things are actually being found. Any ideas where this is? You'd think Peru. Very good, Japan. These stones are exactly the same, you know, the same methodology, you know, using different pieces of stone just to cut and place together. Huge stones as well. Same at here as well. And this is the wall of a Chinese temple. Now, when we look at Easter Island, though it is probably, it's a very strange place, Easter Island. There's been lots of talk about these large heads and actually how old they are. And it would suggest that there's quite a number of these. Most of them actually are facing out towards the sea as opposed to inland. And this is Easter Island, and this is where a volcano was. Now, a number of people, the electromagnetics there are off the scale. Off the scale, they are. In fact, there's warnings that you're not even supposed to use light aircraft to fly over these things, over this area. And it could be simply down to the magnetics of the land and because of the volcanic action that's taken place there thousands of years ago. But on Easter Island, there is also construction using these stones. And look what they've done here. Apart from using huge megalithic stones, they thought, hey guys, let's just put this little piece in here. Now it's about so big. It's about this big. Okay? Now, so it gives you a size roughly of how big these are. But sometimes they go to really, really a great effort. That's that stone, which is about so big. Look at that one. Now, why on earth would you do it? Why? What's the point? But hey, there it is. They thought, we've got to get a perfect little piece of stone to fit in there, and they did do. And amazing work, because it must have been hard to work on a little stone so small. And again, just as we've seen in Peru and China and Japan, same methods, around about the same time, world over. When we look at these large figurines, these heads, weren't heads, they're actually full bodies, really. And they go right down into the ground. And it's because of the length of these things and how far they're actually underground, scientists are actually saying now, well, they could be a lot older than what we think, because it would seem that this is filtration, this is sediment, maybe a catastrophe of some sort. Maybe the sea came in. Whatever it happened, the mud and dirt was slung onto the land and literally buried them. And some of these are buried up to 32 feet. So it just goes to show that how much. Now they say, oh well, they buried them on purpose. Why? Have you seen these carvings? Let's say, let's spend 15 years carving these things and then bury them so nobody sees them. Don't make sense. I assume that these were always on view from the ground up. And of course, maybe something did happen, a catastrophe, and when you actually look at it, it may be around about 9,500 BC again, that buried these things on the Easter Island. You can see them digging down. And they go down and down and down and down. Our mainstream archaeologists say they were buried on purpose, but it doesn't really make much sense, to be honest. Recent discoveries, such as Gobekli Tepe, has just thrown everything out the window. Because for many years we've been saying the Sumerians was the real first culture. That these were the guys that had art and mathematics and even running water, apparently. These were clever guys, and that was the first proper civilization. Incorrect. In fact, Gobekli Tepe may be at least a couple of thousand years older. And they're finding these things, which is pushing humanity back and back and back and back. Now, when I was in school, I was taught certain things that, man was only been around for a certain length of time, and even that's even coming into question now, that actually how long humanity has actually been on this planet. And now it's resting around about 10 to 12,000 years ago, aged 14,000 years. And this is just one site of many. Now, apparently this was purposely filled and purposely hidden. For some reason, we don't know why. But it's a whole mountain top, which seems to be this city, this village, this whole mountain top. This is just one area of it. And of course, we know this is the Sumerian from 6,000 years ago. So there's a big, big difference here. And even this location here was said to be very advanced. The Sumerians were extremely advanced. Gobekli Tepe, more discoveries are being found. As they chip away the land, they're starting to find all these stone blocks. And again, they have carvings on them as well. And they believe they're actually aligned to the stars, just as the Egyptians did. And this apparently predates that. More stones. In this case, this is an achievable thing by Incas. It is possible. But the stones were actually, in some cases, mortared in a few locations. They're kind of, I think it's like what they've done is, and this was only very, very small areas, that they've looked at some of the stones there and said, let's try and copy it but they couldn't do, and it was their best attempts. You can see that this is an original wall, what I would say is pre-Inca, but it's what's, the devil's is in the detail. It's what's behind. When you look behind this wall, you'll find that the back of the wall is fashioned just exactly the same and as good as the front of the wall. They didn't cut corners. It wasn't like, hey, let's do the good side, what we see, and let's not just bother the inside because nobody's going to see it. They really did the inside as well. Again, Inca tried and just didn't bother, because on the outside absolutely looks great. It's only with these gaps here you realise this is not pre-Inca. It's a copy. This is like they've tried to, they've just said, well, it looks great on the front, let's leave it like that. Let's not do the back and the sides, we don't need to. Can anybody see on this original pre-Inca stone where those two stones are met? It's right there. You can't fit a pin between it, and there's no mortar. There's nothing holding these rocks together apart from perfect precision binding together. We come across depictions of Viracocha in Tiahuanaco on this particular megalith. Interesting to say that he looks like he has a beard, and Incas, the representations, when you go through the museums and stuff around the world about the Inca, you'll find very quickly that none of them have ever described to have beards. It's like it was a no-go. We don't have beards, So as to who this person was is a little bit of a mystery. According to the stories, they suggested that it was some form of god or somebody who was a bearer from the sea, who brought culture and archaeology and architecture and knowledge with him. But whoever this mystery person is, it would seem that he's also represented in other places around the world. That's Barry Fitzgerald when we went to Cusco, and as you can see, it's just one big mass. And we struggled with the altitude a little bit, to be honest with you. We reached up to 14,000 feet when we were up at the tops, and it was a bit difficult. Even the car was struggling to chug along because there just wasn't enough oxygen getting into the car. And it was also very hot as well when we were there. That's one of the locals. And these streets are all over the place, little shops and things. But these walls are just there, and they built on top of them. It's like, let's not waste this construction. It's like when the Inca moved from the Lake Titicaca and moved to the valley of Cusco, it was like there was already construction there, pre-Inca construction. So they kind of gone, well, that's fantastic. We've already got some foundation, we've already got really good stonework there, let's build on top of it. And that seems of what they've done. And these stones are all over this whole city. The whole city is covered with them. Sacsayhuaman. And again, there is some precision. The precision on these stones are amazing. And as you can see, there is no mortar, again, in these. And again, they've got that look of that bulbous look about them. And as you look closely at these, you start to see that, they haven't done straight cuts. They kind of, well, let's just do a nice curving here, and we'll get that curving rock that is exactly the same, perfectly meeting each other without any form of mortar or cement or anything holding them together. They had water running ways. The distribution of water was very important for Incas, or even the pre-Incas. And these would gather water and distribute them accordingly around the sites. Very clever. So this is probably one of the largest stones of that location. And how they actually move this is incredible, and we just do not know. Apart from that, like I said, the samples from these rocks show that there's something in them that seems to represent a form of concrete or cement, some form of chemicals within it, non-natural chemicals, something that we put together that shouldn't be together. When we make these constructions, we throw certain things together which aren't normally together, but when we throw them together to make concrete and cement, then you break down, look at those attributes. Some of those attributes are actually being found in here on these stones. So we don't really know if it was a stone or is a stone, it's got a coating on it, or it's been made in some form of fashion, like a clay or something. We just don't know. It's a big mystery. These wonderful little cutouts as well, we don't know what they represent or why they even did them, but they seem to be a common theme throughout all pre-Inca buildings. This is Brian Forrester, and he's stood there purposely because, again, on a discovery is the paw print. You see the paw print? The cat's paw print. Now, a lot of people walk right past these locations and don't even recognise that they're actually there, but they're hidden. They are in there purposely in construction. In other areas, this particular rock is a level 7 in strength. Out of 10, 7 is extremely hard. The tools that were used were 3.5. Archaeologists will say, yes, they used these tools to build it, but the tools are half, the rock is twice as hard as the tool. So how did they use them? What method did they have of cutting these rocks? This is all, by the way, all one piece of stone. Every piece is all one piece. You take readings on these, yeah, perfectly level within 1/10. That's 1/10 of 1 degree. 1/10 of 1 degree out. Incredible. But it would seem as you walk around these places that the idea it shouts out here is it must have been easy. Cutting rock must have been easy for them. Even kids could probably have done it. We have this one. Now this is one complete piece as well, but it's kind of tipped upside down. So it's a staircase actually, which turned upside down because it was split and fell over. We believe maybe this catastrophe that happened was responsible for this cracking and tipping over, because it was so huge, it would have to have taken a huge, significant incident for it to have done that. We have these cuts, again, just cut out. It's like somebody's gone with a knife, like in butter, and just gone, I'll have that chunk. How did they do it? Again, they're scattered all over the place. No, if you just kind of go, if you do go to Peru, I'd say stay off the beaten tracks of what everybody does, wherever all the normal tourists go, because you're just going to see the same things that everybody else sees. But if you just take a step back and go to a few different places on your own accord, you'll find these things and you think, well, I didn't know about that. That's never been on television. Nobody's ever talked about that. I've never seen about this before. They're all over the place. Just cut out. As if it was simple to do. Some of these places are cut out into actual rooms. This is inside walls are so smooth in here that you can almost see your reflection in them. Now, it's not the first time we've seen this, because we've seen this in Egypt as well. This is in Egypt. And they're so smooth, it's like touching marble. But it isn't marble. It's actually granite stone. But it's rubbed or smoothed or heated. The way to get that stone the way it is would require a certain amount of heat that you cannot get from burning fires. It would have to be 2 to 3 times more than that. To heat the rock, to polish the rock, to cut the rock, we don't know. But whatever they used, or whatever the method, this is the after effect. You can see the reflection of this gentleman's hand. It's like a mirror. It's incredible. In other areas, this is Pisac in Peru. Again, mainstream archaeologists say it's just an Inca site. This is Inca construction. Who built this one? And if they built this one at the same time they built that one, then why didn't they build them the same? And there are no comparisons between these two. Absolutely no comparisons at all. Some of these locations, again, cut out of just the rock. And they've actually even made sure that, these cut out these little edges. It's extremely hard to do. He said, really, we talk to guys that are stonemasons, and they say, cutting rock, okay, we can understand, but cutting pieces out of rock and inlets out of rock with precision is extremely, extremely difficult to do, even today. And yet, these were done thousands and thousands of years back. This is the door that goes nowhere. In fact, I assume that they were probably going to. They kind of got this opening and a door here, but it's only a few feet in. And it's as if like they never went any further for some reason. The door that doesn't go anywhere. Here's another picture of it. You go in about 3 foot and it kind of just stops. Maybe they were considering to build something in there or open it up, cut it out. But it was never completed. We call it the false door. Now, this is very interesting because late last year, I was in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and I was talking to a researcher who spent a lot of time going to these countries, and she went back. The first time she went there was probably about 15, 18 years ago, and she actually got this photograph. This photograph is one of our photographs. And she's got this photograph, and I know where it is because it's exactly the same location, and it's only one of these. And she said, have a look through my photographs. So I was just having a look because I was kind of thinking, well, it's nice to see something we were taking 18 years ago, and I'm looking at mine, how things haven't changed. That particular photograph of hers, though, has a pyramid in here, a stone pyramid. And I said, well, hang on a second. I said, where's that taken? And she told me, and I said, have you been back recently? She said, I know what you're going to say. I said, sure. She said, I have been back, and that pyramid's not there, is it? And I said, no, I've never even know there was a pyramid in there. There's my photographs. She said, yeah, there's two of them, two of these locations where they had small pyramids where the water was dropping on to the stone pyramids. Now, some of you guys will probably understand exactly what they might have been trying to achieve there. However, for some reason, the guys that are running these sites actually took them off. They actually chiseled them off, the top parts, so that it was just covered in water so you couldn't see them. They took the two pyramids about 6 or 7 inches tall, and the water was just falling on the crest of the pyramids. And there's 2 locations that had the same thing, and they've took those off. As to reasons why, I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. It doesn't make any sense. Why ruin something this incredible? It just doesn't make any sense. But we've got the photographs. And we've also talked to a number of individuals and say, oh yeah, did you not know about that? I said, yeah, but why did they do it? We don't know. Who did it? Well, I assume it's probably something to do with the government and the running of the sites. It just doesn't make any sense. But very, very mysterious that pyramids actually were taken out of this location, in 2 of them. When you look at the chakra symbol, it's very much represented across Peru in the ancient sites where they're situated, the geomagnetics and the electromagnetic energies that are referred to and recorded in those locations. It's very, very interesting that they seem to have an understanding of this concept. So there's even a lot more to it than just guys going around and building buildings in a certain way. They were very, very clever. They knew exactly how to build these monuments and where they actually precisionally were placing them across the whole country. And the mathematics that's involved and the geometry is just incredible, considering how old these sites may be, because we were considering that these were Inca, but these sites don't seem to be pre-Inca. They're not Inca, they're pre-Inca. So how old are they? Because we're dating them wrong. If they're saying they're Inca, then we're dating them wrong, because clearly these are constructions prior to the Incas. So how old are they really? And how old is this method of geometry and mathematics been involved in these constructions across the land? We look at the places like this, Alitombo, which has got these 3 levels of constructions. People years ago used to think they were giant steps. They must have been giant steps. They're actually terraces. And they did a lot of these terraces because of 2 things: for growing crops, and also that you didn't trip over and kill yourself, because these terraces, you'd only fall to the next terrace. And it's the same at Machu Picchu, that you have these terraces. So if you fall, you're going to fall 6 foot. You're not going to fall thousands of feet down to the bottom. You can see from 2001, this is 2015, and you can see that it hasn't really changed. It is pretty much exactly the same. And these terraces, this is cut out from a hillside. This here was once like this. It's hard to imagine somebody actually looking at this one day and going, let's cut all this out and make giant steps. And where's all this stuff gone anyway? Because it's not around. Where's all the debris and extra material moved away from these mountaintops? Like Machu Picchu, the whole thing is cut off. It's like the top where the Nazca lines are. The whole mountain top's been taken away. But we don't know where it is. It isn't around. It's mysteriously disappeared, vacuumed away. And this is exactly the same with the Peruvians. Again, these constructions are at very high altitude. So it wasn't as just a matter of pre-Inca building these, it was getting them up there as well. Some of these are thousands of feet high in altitude. And I can tell you from just being at 14,000 feet, it was difficult to breathe. But don't get me wrong, I mean, if you acclimatise yourself, I mean, I saw 60, 70-year-old Peruvian women running past me, and I was dying because I tied my shoelace. These stones are huge. This is the size of a car, if not bigger. These would have to have been carried up and placed up there. And we're unsure actually we're assuming it was some form of temple, because this is what the guys do. They look at these things and go, oh, it's a temple. But we don't really know what they are. We're assuming that there's some forms of temple. Because what they think is, if people are going to go to that much length and that much bother, then it must be really significant for them. So therefore it must be a temple, because everything was about the gods for them. Not always the case. These have these nodules again. But on some of these locations, they've actually had shifting of these stones. So again, it would seem whatever catastrophe happened, it was enough to shake the whole mountains of Peru and even cause these giant stones to even move apart from each other. You can see here as it's moved away. These gaps were not normal gaps. These were all together probably at one time. And then the Inca have seen these pre-Inca building stones and filled these gaps up with their build. You know, it seems quite obvious what's really happened there. Some of these are absolutely huge. These are, again, they call it temple walls. Absolutely huge. And an incredible altitude as well. So how they got there, where they're cutting from is obviously quarries, which are some of them are 100 odd miles away. So they would have had to cut it and take it 100 odd miles and then climb a descent with these for thousands of feet to build these temples up there. Again, when you're up at these high altitudes, you see what seems to be pre-Inca and Inca. This is not the same construction. It's like they've decided to build on top of older buildings. Again, perfect example. This is pre-Inca. You can look at the design and the construction, you can clearly tell. But this is Inca. Again, mainstream archaeologists say, oh yeah, the same guys built all that at the same time. Doesn't make any sense. And again, cut stones. They're crazy. There are cut marks in stones. Now, some of the new research about these cut marks are incredible, absolutely incredible. Because these are rocks which are level 7, level 8, level 9 in hardness, in strength. Diamond cut drills bits would have to be used. Specialized blades would have to be used. The precision on cutting these stones are absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Scallop marks. This is like I said a bit earlier, like someone's just come along and took a lump out. But here's the funny thing. These two pieces were cut out. Now, if you're going to, for an example, going to cut out this, the first thing you do is cut here, cut here, cut here, and cut here. But how do you cut out the back? How do you get behind it to cut it? Look, that is smooth. And do you know what's really annoying? They left a piece around just to really, really annoy us. To say, hey guys, this is what we can do. Yeah, it's just sat there. Right, that piece here is that. And how did they cut it out? It's perfectly smooth as well. Cut it out from the back. What precision and what type of equipment must the machinery what they use to do that? I haven't come across anything today that can do that. Okay, machine marks. They are hidden. They're not on your normal tourist path. Has anybody actually ever seen these in Peru? Exactly. because most people go to Peru tend to stick to where everybody else goes. But get off the path. Instead of doing the usual thing for Machu Picchu, come off the normal path and go behind. Or say for Tombo, go behind, come off the normal path, and you start coming across these places where they don't have tourists going to look. There are literally areas cut out, and the machine marks, these are machine marks in the stone. What the hell is that? What causes these machine marks? And there are more than one of them. It would seem something significant is being used, some type of equipment. Now this is where the mystery is where the hell is this equipment? Where is this equipment gone? Because this isn't small stuff. This is giant stuff. Some of these machines must have been massive. Some of these machines must have been very technical. Where are all the evidence to support how they did this? We know, we've got a mystery. This is how it's done. It's like me suddenly saying, if we were living in the cave, living in cave days, and suddenly an aircraft carrier appears, we say, okay, that's amazing. How the hell has that been made? Well, where's the machinery that built it? Because one thing leads to the next, and you've got to have this. And it goes on that it must have been simple to cut rock. And this particular mountain, which is known as Pincula Luna, there is a face in there. It's a very large mountain. This is the face. They believe it's actually been cut out of the stone. It's 500 foot long, this here. And they believe it has been cut out purposely. It does look like it has been cut out. It doesn't look natural. It's 500 feet tall, stuck out the side of a mountain. Again, in Peru, people don't get to see this very often. And of course, Machu Picchu, they say it took 30 years to build it. It took 30 years to build it. Yeah. And again, this was like this. So we have to question, where's all this? Top bit gone. Because it's not down below. It doesn't seem to be anywhere around. So it must have been moved and evacuated miles away maybe to over towards the quarries. Maybe they moved it there. But the feat that's involved in this, and this is very high, is incredible. And again, they use these terraces, same effects. But old photographs, this is, I believe, from round about, I think it's 1911? This is a photograph from 1911 at Machu Picchu. And what you don't see here is these. These are huge megalithic stones, blocks, pre-Inca built. These are huge compared to the site. You don't really get to see these very often in this format because things have changed a lot up there over the years. Here's a close-up, again, taken, I think it was what, 1913, I can't really say, but again, you can see the size of these. This is again Machu Picchu. But when they were digging up down here, they were finding those elongated skulls again. Really long elongated skulls from this location, exactly here. It's phenomenal, the construction that they've done up there. This is the 3 windows. And again, very unusual construction. And it looks to be pre-Inca, again. Exactly the same things. Now this, which is known as the hatching post, the hitching post. This is it actually looks like a piece of rock, but it isn't. It is, believe it or not, the top of Machu Picchu, the mountain. And it's off the scale in magnetics. In fact, if you take you can't get too close to it because they put this thing around it now. But if you kind of look around and have a look and think, oh, right, okay, and you get a little bit nearer to it with your compass, you'll get a full swing away. It completely alters the compass. It's off the scale. That is actually the crest of the mountain top. That's what's left of it. And they left that there purposely. It's known as the hitching post. And it was when it was first discovered here, you can see the guys doing tests with the full swing on the compasses. And that is just one of the things if you wouldn't get to see very much. If you go to Machu Picchu, you've got to go up. And the guides don't always take you there, but you've got to stay off the beaten track. You've got to look around because the mysteries are there. So All right, thank you very much. Thank you again for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Part 2 will be coming shortly. Thank you again for watching.